What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the No Name Podcast. Excuse me, the Young Rich Pod. Welcome back to the Young Rich Pod. All right, new name, new title. Almost messed up already, but I'm glad to be back right now. Obviously, it's been a little bit. I've been lacking a little bit on the uploads. I've just had a lot of other stuff going on, but that's on me. Obviously, I've got to stay committed if I want this to go to a whole nother level and take this into a different direction. So that's on me. I'm definitely going to be more consistent from now on. And like Kenny Beecham says, bro, if y'all like the podcast or y'all enjoy my content, make sure to tell a friend, tell a friend, and tell a friend, and tell a friend. All right, let's just share my podcast everywhere. Let's get this to as many people as possible, as many eyes on us, because it is the road to 5K currently. And again, I want to appreciate all the support that I get from all my other videos. People who hit me up on Twitter, follow me on TikTok, and do all that stuff and show support consistently. I want to appreciate y'all. I always want to show my thanks and my gratitude towards the people who support me now, because again, this is the beginning of something new, a community I'm trying to create, and another step in my life I'm trying to go. So I just want to appreciate everyone for the support. But obviously, as we already know, it is a day late. But the Dallas Mavericks advanced to the NBA Finals, right? And this, I mean, listen, not only did they put an absolute spanking on the Minnesota Timberwolves, right? Winning the game by 24. At one point, it was almost a 40-point lead. It was very unlikely for them to come back. It was just Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving being absolutely remarkable again. I mean, like, they were again, you heard it before. People were calling these guys the greatest offensive duo in NBA history. They were calling this the greatest offensive backcourt that we've ever seen in the NBA, right? And to some extent, I do highly agree on that, statement. The potential that they have, how skilled these two players are. You have two guys who could at any night go for 30, and now you've seen Kyrie and Luka both buy in on the defensive side of things. So these guys have come together at the right time. You've heard a lot of criticism about Kyrie throughout his career, to where you got to a point to where we questioned his motive as a player. You trade for Kyrie Irving last year from Brooklyn to Dallas, right? And then you give him an extension, and you don't even make the play in last year, right? You had a very upsetting finish to your season, disappointing end to your season last year, and then you bring him back, and nobody was giving any credit for Kyrie Irving. There was a more hate and criticism towards Kyrie Irving's name than there was love and appreciating what he can do as a basketball player, and being a teammate alongside Luka Doncic, right? And so I want to give a lot of shout out and praise to Kyrie for what he's done and changing this narrative all around his career. Being a guy who you had to worry about all these off-field issues. He wasn't very good in the press. The media, seen him as a villain. He's seen as a very bad guy, a guy who was kind of all about him. The breaking up of with he when he left with LeBron, and then the way he left Boston. Everybody, wanted him to stay. He said he wanted to stay in Boston, and then it was out, just like he did in Cleveland, just like he did in Brooklyn. We know this, but I mean, definitely, like, I've heard this from a lot of people too. He's kind of changed the narrative that goes alongside of his name. So I just want to show a lot of praise to Kyrie Irving, because him and Luka Doncic pairing up together have just played so perfectly together. They have meshed so well, and you see it when you close games, because when Luka goes out there and he's still having a phenomenal night, but he needs a break on the offensive end, right? Because again, he's buying into the defense. Kyrie goes up there, he steps up, he calls for the ball and goes to work. And Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic have just been so perfect in the clutch that it sucks to see Minnesota lose this way, because you go into the series, needing Anthony Edwards to be, a superstar, to be Michael Jordan-esque, like everybody's comparing him to, right? Which we'll get into in a minute, right? But you get into the situation where you need someone like Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns to really step up, and they didn't step up, and you still were so close in majority of these games, right? And so you just wish you could have played better. The one time you get both of them playing together at the same time, playing well at the same time, you get a game 4 win, and you lose in game 5, but I mean, at least your two superstars were there to show up. So again, you had all this energy on Anthony Edwards being Michael Jordan-esque, and then he goes in and has a kind of a dud series. Overall the series was not beautiful. Games 1 through 3, he was not there. He did not show up. Especially talking all that talk, and then Kyrie going out there and busting you up another one. The entire series. You couldn't guard him. You couldn't guard Luka. And it was just an absolute masterclass. And this goes to show, what this team could do. I'm definitely leaning towards the Mavs when I get into my predictions, right? But just because the firepower on offense that these two players have, And listen, I thought that I had seen some of the best basketball. I mean, I did watch some of the best basketball to close out a game in that fourth quarter against OKC in that game six. Like, right, that was some of the best basketball I've seen in a very, very long time. Answer after answer, SGA after big shot after Luka big shot. Like it was action packed. It was tough shot after tough shot. These superstars knew they needed help. They knew they needed to come through in a big play, and they delivered, right? And then you got that to a totally different level this series. I mean, Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic are not. They single handedly, those two together outscored the entire Minnesota Timberwolves in the fourth quarter. Like, to be able to do that, right? And on a consistent 3-game stretch, like, you did it 4 to 5 games, yes, but like 3 games in a row to go up 3-0, like, you dominated. You made Kyrie Irving, again, we know how talented he is, but the shots he was making was just absolutely ridiculous. It was tough shot after tough shot. We know what type of scorer he is, so we know he's capable of doing that. And then even Luka Doncic, a guy who never ever wanted to play off the ball, never wanted to catch and shoot. That's not in his bag. And now you start to see Luka getting more catch and shoot opportunities, and he is taking advantage of those. So now you're looking at a Luka Doncic who's willing to play off the ball and not have to hit a little step back contested three. Although we've still seen him do that, right? Which is crazy because we've still seen him do that just as much. He has an open shot, takes a step back, waits for the contest, and then still shoots it and drains it. So again, this team is getting hot at the very right time, at the exact right time. Boston, they have a little bit of a longer break, so does that affect them going into game one? Who knows? We will discuss more in a moment. But, again, and then alongside Luka Doncic and Kyrie playing, Luka playing at the best player in the world type level right now, and then Kyrie being the best number 2 option in the NBA, right now at this current moment is what he's playing like. Alongside that, you have a defense that's been showing up, that's been playing. You've made this Minnesota team who, it's not like this Minnesota team was an elite offense this entire year. They had their offensive struggles, but defensively they were just so good that you could get away with a lot of those things. And Dallas just exposed them defensively. They made Rudy Gobert have to try to do a lot of work offensively, and you couldn't do that. You hurt him defensively with his inability to guard on the perimeter. You were taking advantage of all these mismatches. You were allowing Anthony Edwards to be a scoring threat, but you weren't really respecting his playmaking ability because at the end of the day, he wasn't playmaking enough to make you respect all those passes. And so you showed him extra bodies, extra love when he's crashing, when he's coming to the paint, and you kind of slowed him down just enough, and you're in passing lanes. So defensively, this team was just locked in, and they played beautiful basketball. Again, going back to the NBA Finals since they had Dirk, this was, European torch has already been passed over, but I've seen Dirk courtside at every game. I'm seeing all these guys pull up, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, a lot of energy, a lot of big faces at these games, and it's great to see for Dallas. I'm a big Mark Cuban guy. I love to see a young player, have the chance to be one of the youngest superstars to win a championship as the number 1 option. Younger than Kobe, younger than LeBron, younger than MJ. He has this type of younger than Shaq. He has that chance, that opportunity going into the series, and I couldn't be happier. You love to see the new era in the NBA. These guys who for years we've been wondering when they were going to get it done, when they were going to make it to the finals, when they were going to make a deep playoff run, and when they were going to meet these expectations that we had for them. And now to see the Dallas be one of those teams to answer the bell and be there, it's just great to see. They've been waiting a long time for this, especially after a disappointing season last year. And again, you're going into this series with 2 of the most clutch players in the league in this playoffs. This current playoff run, in Kyrie and Luka. So it's going to be a great series, and I'm definitely interested to see how that goes, Listen, also, one thing I do want to talk about this series alone before I get more in depth about Boston is, listen, the storylines that actually lived up for that built up this entire Dallas versus Boston thing. Listen, you have KP used to play for Dallas, and then he goes to Boston, and now boom, he couldn't get it done with Luka. Now he's getting it done with Boston with Jason Tatum and them, right? And then you have Kyrie. He got basically force his way out of Boston, with bad energy, a lot of bad blood. You go out there, you get swept by the Nets. You have a lot. You're talking to the fans. You're flipping fans off. A lot of tension there. Nobody likes you in Boston, Kyrie. And now you got him on Dallas, recreating his legacy, rewriting his legacy, and boom, now you're in the finals. Playing some of the best basketball you've ever played. And then you got Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington in particular. Those two guys. I mean, I was watching clips of his Instagram live story where you're sitting here and he's celebrating because he's like, yo, we went from the worst team in the league to the finals. Like how crazy can that be? And it was. And, one of the big, I mean, obviously Gafford coming from Washington and PJ coming from the Hornets, and those were two moves that at the current time when they were made at the deadline, people were questioning whether they were a smart move, whether they were going to fit well together, and PJ Washington has won you games. PJ Washington has been a clutch fourth quarter shooter. He makes big time shots in the clutch when you need him, when it matters most. He's like put back dunk, rebounding, playing defense. You've got PJ Washington to buy in. You've got Daniel Gafford to buy in. You've upped your points in the paint since you brought in Daniel Gafford and had the Derek Lively duo switch, and the way Jason Kidd uses Derek Lively and Daniel Gafford both, it's been absolutely remarkable. You give them a little 7-minute run here, 7-minute run there, and you kind of just swap them, and they just do such a great job of playing off each other and keeping, and he does a good job of making sure they're both high energy when they go in. He's keeping them fresh. He wants them to keep their high energy play and to hurt Minnesota, and that's exactly what they did. So again, and then also Grant Williams, one person I got to talk about before we get into Boston, right? But, I mean, Grant Williams, a guy who he was with Boston, he made it to the finals once. He goes out there talking trash to Jimmy Butler before he gets eliminated last year. And then, boom, next thing you know, he gets traded to Charlotte. So now he's stuck in Charlotte. Like, there was just a lot of storylines and a lot of people, swapping teams and stuff like that I thought just made this a whole lot better. Already seeing the Boston fan base talking crazy about Kyrie, and so we will definitely see how that goes if it gets to his head. I would like to see Kyrie answer back and not have another, falling out like he did with KD in Brooklyn. And then we get into the Boston Celtics, right? This is a bit of a, delayed discussion. Obviously, it's been discussed before. I've seen people talk about it, especially after the way Game 4 ended and their series ended against Indiana, But the question about, is Jason Tatum really your number one best player on that team? Is Jason Tatum the guy who you can trust in late game situations to come out and bring you to the promised land, which is something that we've questioned about him for years of his career, especially in the finals when he played against Golden State, and now you're looking at the situation. Jaylen Brown obviously getting Eastern Conference Playoffs MVP of the East, I mean, listen, had a 40-point game 2 versus Indiana, who's 29.8 points a game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 52% from the field, 37% from 3, and in this playoff run alone, right? I mean, 25, 6 and 3, 37% from 3, 54% from the field. You've played absolutely efficient and great basketball this entire playoff run. And then you look at Jason Tatum's numbers, right, which kind of worries me. 26, 10, and 6, 44% from the field in this current playoff run, right? And then you have 29% from 3 this postseason, right? 30.6% from 3 against Indiana in that series, because you have a team, you have a player who's six seven, 6'6", he's a humongous player. You have the size advantage on he might even be taller than that, to be honest. I might be downsizing him a little bit. But you have a size advantage on half the players in the NBA that are going to be guarding you, So you have the ability to go to the paint, go to the free throw line, and give yourself some free, easy buckets and apply pressure on that defense, But when you become so jump shot reliant that, you even though you're having a dominant game, you start to hurt yourself by forcing too many threes. And, this guy's averaging 8 to 10 threes points shots attempted a game, and it's just not efficient, when your shot's not falling. It's like Karl Anthony Towns against Dallas, he was 0 for 15 the first 3 games, didn't make a single 3, and this guy could not find one to fall for him. His confidence was off. He was talking about he's putting up 1,800, 1,500 shots a day, all this stuff, whatever, right? But exactly how he's hurting himself as a player, and is to help this team win. You're hurting them. Especially when you're forcing yourself to settle for threes, right? You're forcing yourself to settle for jump shots when you're 7 foot. You could be dominating the paint, which he did at the end of Game 4 and in Game 5, right? Okay, so Jason Tatum is in that exact situation. If the three ball is not falling, go to the paint. Go attack the basket. You can have easy buckets. You can get to the free throw line, get some easy points, apply pressure on the defense, and you have all the spacing in the world, especially with KP coming back. You're gonna have all the spacing in the world, all the room to operate. So go and take advantage of this opportunity. And when I see Jason Tatum sitting back and step back three after step back three or long two fade away, like all these tough shots that he's taking, it just doesn't look right to me. And then you understand where these questions come from, because not only is it tough shot after tough shot, but you're not hot, right? You're not feeling yourself from three. You're not efficient from three. The numbers tell you that. Your game tells you that, right? And as soon as you start to dominate and get to the basket, you start having some success. You start feeling yourself, and then you start taking a couple heat checks, shooting one too many threes. When you were finding success getting to the basket, right? So this guy just worries me about his shot decision, his shots taken. Like, what is it going to be if Dallas is going to sit there and let him shoot threes, or like what's going to happen? Because it's going to be a whole another Karl Anthony Towns situation. They're going to let you shoot threes because you're not hitting them, and they're not going to be scared, right? Because they're not worried about you going to the basket because you're not making them respect it. So it could hurt him as much as it could help him in this series, right? And at this current moment, I still think Jason Tatum is the number one option on this team. I think that's undoubtedly, he is the number one player on this team. I just don't see him as a dominant top 8 superstar in this league, top 10 superstar in this league, a guy who demands the ball, a guy who's going to go in there, dominate when you need him to do it in the fourth quarter to close out games. Like, I don't see him as a guy that's like a Luka Doncic, like a Jokic, like a Giannis, like a Dame. Like, I don't trust him to close out games for me. And I mean, that's okay, because your team's so talented around you that, you don't have to. You have guys like Derek White hitting big-time game winners every other game. You have guys, Drew Holiday, who's been playing phenomenal. You have KP, Al Horford, who's having a couple big playoff games. You're surrounded by a lot of shooters. You have a lot of great role players around you, so you don't have to be the greatest player in the world, right? But you would like to see yourself, you've talked about you should be in the MVP discussion, being the best player on the best team, If you think you're that type of player, you have to go out there and show us. And when things get tough, he kind of just settles down and let other people just carry him to the promised land, which is okay. It's okay in the sense that you're playing the right type of ball. If one guy is hot, feed him the ball. If another, if the other guys are just playing better than you at that current moment, get them the ball. You don't got to force anything because your teammates are so good and your teammates are picking up your slack. But when you get into the discussion, is Jason Tatum a finals caliber player? Like, is he going to win you the finals on his back, by his lonesome? No, I don't think so. Not only has he showed us that he wasn't that player before, but I still don't see that. There's nothing in this postseason run that answers that question, that says this guy can get it done by himself. This guy's going to make those big-time baskets when we need it most. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, Jaylen Brown was the one bailing him out against the Pacers. In 3 to 4 games where you shouldn't have even won. You were in situations where you were losing for the most of the fourth quarter, and the Pacers kind of throw it. The couple back-to-back turnovers, no Tyrese Halliburton, and then you look at the Cleveland series, no Donovan Mitchell, no Jared Allen, possibly their 2 best players not in the series. And then you look at against Miami, you're missing Jimmy Butler, the one guy who even said if he would have played against you guys at full health, you wouldn't have won. So just all the things are lined up. You're healthy for the most part. You're well rested. You're going to have home court advantage. You're a 6.5 point favorite, right? So go out here and prove the world wrong. This is all in Jason Tatum's hands. He has to answer the question. He has to go out here and perform and meet expectations and deliver. Deliver a championship to Boston. That is what they're looking for. That is what you were searching for. A guy to win a championship. You said it before. Everybody knows you were the best team in the weak Eastern Conference. Okay, so go out there and go win it. Go change your narrative like Kyrie Irving is doing right now in Dallas. And then when we get to predictions, again, I think in this series alone, Luka and Kyrie, I trust those 2 guys to win me more games than I do Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. right? Because not only does this Boston team rely on the three ball a lot, right? But I mean, listen, I just don't. I'm just not sitting here, and I'm not gonna act like I am scared of Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. Like I'm gonna respect them. They're great players. I'm gonna respect them, but I'm not sitting here worried about either of them, especially the way Jason Tatum's been playing. You know, Jaylen Brown's been has the hotter hand as of late. More efficient guy. But Jason Tatum takes a lot of. He's a high demand guy. He takes a lot of shots. Whether it's his night or not, he's still going to take his shots. He's still going to put his shots up, right? So there's questions out there. I mean, then you look at Boston. You have the chance to with KP in there. The spacing will be better. You'll have more spacing, more work to get to the paint and create your own shot. I do think the Boston role players have a higher like bang potential. Like they can give you more every like they have a higher chance to bang boom right than bust right. They have a higher better chance of giving you 20 than the Dallas Mavericks support cast. And I know Dallas Mavericks cast did that a couple times early in the series, especially against OKC, right? But so there's a lot of things that we will have to you'll have to put in consideration. You'll have to see how it plays out, see what happens. But that's just how I'm feeling. And then when you put Luka and Kyrie with one of the better defenses in the finals, a great defense that really caused Minnesota a lot of problems, right? They caused them a lot of problems. So you look at that, and then I really am just the way Kyrie and Luke have been playing together, off each other, elevating each other's play, taking over for when someone's not on the court or someone needs a break on offense or whatever, and the fact that they're both buying in on defense. Listen, I think this is Dallas's best chance to win a chip, and I got Dallas in 6. Boston Celtics fans, boo me, whatever, boo, right? I got Dallas in 6. I think Luke and Kyrie are really gonna get busy this series. Although I know Boston has a lot of great perimeter defenders, I just think from what I've seen from Dallas consistently throughout this whole playoff run is more consistently, like Dallas. Excuse me, Boston has had a lot of games they won they shouldn't have won, or and it was just a bad team making a lot of big mistakes that gave them those wins. So I don't think that Kyrie and Luka are going to make those same decisions. And I trust Jason Kidd to make adjustments, to figure out a game plan that works for them, just like they did with Minnesota, completely taking Rudy Gobert out of the situation. Okay? So I do expect that type of success to roll over, and I'm more confident in saying Dallas in 6 than Boston in 7. And then my WNBA GOAT, the greatest WNBA basketball player of all time, Caitlin Clark. Nah, but, obviously, dropped a 30-point game last 2 games ago against the Los Angeles Sparks. She's definitely been more consistent, although highly inefficient with a lot of turnovers. Definitely been more efficient as of late. But I just wanted to speak on the hate that this woman is getting for herself, right? Not only is she a young girl, just went to the WNBA, right? She has all this college accolades at Iowa, was one of the greatest college players ever, had one of the greatest college basketball runs in their career, right? And she created a lot of hype for herself. NIL deal became a thing. So now you've seen these girls, and specifically Caitlin Clark, take over in the NIL space. Creating a lot of wealth for her name, image, and likeness. Being one of the first WNBA player to be partnered with Wilson, going into the W, right? And then, you see these situations where now what? They just got chartered. These women now got chartered. The WNBA are adding an expansion Golden State team. So they are doing a lot of steps in the right direction to help grow this sport, right? And a lot of that has to do specifically with this year, is Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark not only has the most sold out games this year in the WNBA, had the one of 4 or something like sold out games in WNBA history opening night on the road, right? She wasn't even at home, it was on the road, right? And then you go back to Indiana, absolutely sold out. You have all these little girls screaming Caitlin Clark with all her gear on, her apparel on, and she's talking about her transition and how she's got to adjust to the WNBA, right? And not only did the WNBA give her the probably one of the worst, toughest schedules to start as a rookie, like you see other teams, other leagues, these rookie players get a little bit of an easier stretch to start the year off so that way they can build confidence and get used to the NBA, right? Or to the NFL, whatever. But, complete opposite for Caitlin Clark, right? And you've seen, I don't know if you've personally seen it, but if you pay attention to the WNBA space, if you watched a lot of women's college basketball this March Madness, right, you would see a lot of current WNBA players, Deonna Taurasi, retired players, Sue Bird, give her a little bit of hate, right? And there's a lot of players in the W that disrespect her in a way that just, to me, is just considered out of pocket, right? Because you disrespect this girl who has brought the most attention to the WNBA that we've ever seen in history, right? The most viewed opening night game in the WNBA history, the most viewed game in WNBA history. You are doubling views on an opening night game for Caitlin Clark than you did for the WNBA Finals, right? You had, I think it was probably even 4 times the views. And then you have gambling, right? Like, listen, this was Caitlin Clark's opening night game was the most gambled game in WNBA history again. You're bringing millions and millions of dollars and people of watching these games, paying attention to the games, betting on Caitlin Clark. Like the attention that she has brought to the W is not only, I mean, it's great for the people, the league, the organizations, the players currently, girls who are top notch WNBA players, but their name, image, and likeness is not as great as Caitlin Clark per se or Asia Wilson. Like there are elite players who their name, image, and likeness isn't as big as Caitlin Clark's, right? So as big as you can be in the WNBA space, there is a cap, and Caitlin Clark blew that cap out the water. She's done everything you've possibly asked for her to do. She came into the W. She hasn't complained. She clearly shows the urge that she wants to win. She wants to be the best, right? And she didn't come in here talking shit. She didn't come in here, disrespecting people or hating on players or coaches or any of the other girls in the league, right? She's done nothing but just try to work hard and get better at her game and improve her team, right? And all these other WNBA players are hating on her, talking trash about, the commissioner and her and just the whole mess, right? And Charles Barkley said it best yourself. A lot of these girls are so petty. You have the opportunity for your sport to grow. You think you're living an okay life now. Imagine the opportunity 5 to 10 years down the line. Caitlin Clark has grown this community and your revenue has tripled, your viewership has tripled, your sponsorships have tripled, and now instead of making $260,000 base salary for rookies, you're making 150, 200, still steps in the right direction at the end of the day is what I'm trying to say, but to see a girl get this much hate, like, it's just weird how and specifically in the WNBA, you have this generational type talent, a girl who's seen as the quote unquote Steph Curry of women's, right? What she's been able to do, what she did in college, what she still shows flashes of, right? Although she's, again, a lot of turnovers, inefficient as at the moment, she still shows the flashes of superstardom, right? Like just a different type of ball player, okay? But like it's just very similar to the NBA, right? You have guys like Wembanyama, one of the freakish, most gifted unicorn athlete prospects, the greatest prospect since LeBron James, and even us as players, as fans and viewers, as people, we are welcoming him into the sport because we knows he's good, right? Even if we don't know if he's going to be successful. Before we even knew if he was successful, people were using him in 2K. 2K was adding him into my career, my part, my team, whatever. People were already seeing who he was. His name was blowing up. We were welcoming him into the league. We were talking about him all offseason. We were creating energy, creating stories, hyping up his name. So when he bounced into the NBA and he got there day one, everybody knew who he was, and Caitlin Clark is doing the exact same thing, but instead of showing them love, we're showing them hate, and it just bothers me that the WNBA specifically, the girls have been very vocal about they want to grow the sport. They want to make more money for them as players, right? They want to do all these things to help women athletes in the professional levels, right? They want to help them financially, become more stable, become more independent financially, right? And this girl comes in with millions of dollars to her name, millions of viewers to her name, and now you're not supporting her and helping her grow. and now you're just hating on her because she's getting more attention than you, and she's a rookie. Victor Wembanyama did the same thing coming into the league. You come in, he played a little bit inefficient. You've seen some things he needed to work on. And by the end of the year, he became the full package. And it's still not the prime Wembanyama that we hope to see, but we've seen so much from him already. So again, I just think it has to do with the women's being so petty, especially with Brianna Stewart and not Isaiah Collier. I forget her first name, but Collier from Minnesota. They are obviously developing a 3v3 women's league to help bring more attention to women's basketball and something off-season wise that allows minimum six-figure salaries, which is great for them, great for them to work on, something to help players create some more financial stability, right? So I'm all for it. But at the end of the day, you have your best, your golden ticket into growing the league, and you've got to go out there and take advantage of it, right? You've done everything to kind of make her look bad, and she hasn't said anything about it. She hasn't cried, hasn't asked for no mistreatment. She's just working her way through it and trying to improve every day. And you could see it, her numbers are getting better. She's having more takeover nights, and the team's been playing a little bit better, So again, I pray that the WNBA gets their stuff together and helps, do a Wemby-like takeover of her rookie year for Caitlin Clark, like they did with Wembanyama. All right, but next on the episode, right, is the wide receiver contracts, right? Listen, this has been one of the topics of discussion that has just kind of blown my mind, right? Because you've seen some T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk were the two most notable names who were franchise tagged, who still have yet been given another contract extension, right? And they both are asking for $25 to $30 million. Brandon Ayuk, it wants more than Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was making $30 million a year, and T. Higgins wants to be more in that 25 range, right? So these players clearly want to get paid, and the issues with these guys in particular is they already paid another receiver. They already, in San Francisco's case, they've paid their running back, they paid their tight end, they paid their tackle, they're paying these guys like top 5 at their position, and now you can't pay Brandon Ayuk like he's top 5 at his position, So you've invested a lot of money in elsewhere and other places. And for Cincinnati in particular, you have to pay Jamar Chase. And Jamar Chase, if T. Higgins wants 25, Jamar Chase is going to want 32, 35, And now it's just a bidding war between CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase, So we'll definitely see how those play out. But a list of wide receivers who have been paid this offseason that I wanted to just discuss, right? And listen, Jalen Waddle just got paid 3 years, $84.75 million. Nico Collins, 3 years, $72.75 million. A.J. Brown, 3-year, $96 million extension. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 4-year, $120 million extension. Devontae Smith, 3 for $75. Jerry Jeudy, 3 for $52.5. Michael Pittman, 3 for $70. Mike Evans, 2 for $52. Jawan Jennings, 15.4 years, $4 million for 2 years, right? And the biggest thing with me about Jawan Jennings is that he got paid before T. Higgins and Brandon Ayuk did, right? And in Brandon Ayuk's case, not only did you just get Ricky Pearsall, who I think is an absolute great receiver from Florida, right? He was used to play with Brandon Ayuk in Arizona State. Brandon Ayuk vouched for the pick. He said it was a great pick, right? Not only did you already get him, and you already pay your tight end as a top 5 tight end in the league. You already pay your receiver, who at his time when he did get paid was the top 5 highest paid receivers in the league, right? And then you already pay your offensive tackle like the best offensive tackle in football. You pay your middle linebacker like the best middle linebacker in football. You pay your running back like the generational talent he is. So there's so much in money invested in this team, and the fact that you signed Jawan Jennings and you weren't able to sign Brandon Ayuk just really blows my mind, because the longer it takes to sign Brandon Ayuk, the more money he's going to want, right? Nothing ever gets easier as the time goes for contract extensions, because one guy's going to be worse than him and he's going to get paid more than what he already wanted, and then that's going to set the base salary. He's going to want more than that value, that number, because he is better than so-and-so, So again, there's a lot of questions these guys have to ask or have to figure out, especially with Brock Purdy possibly being up for extension soon, how much is he going to be worth? Is he going to be a $35 million guy? Is he going to be a $40 million guy, Is he going to have an MVP-type season and be worth $50 million, So there's a lot of things that San Francisco definitely has to figure out, and I know they restructured a lot of contracts. They move a lot of money around, and, their win now window is currently right now, so we'll definitely see how that plays out, but some of these receivers who are getting paid before Brandon Ayuk and T. Higgins just blows my mind. It really, really does. But again, like I said, the quicker you get it done, the easier it is. And it doesn't blow my mind that these players got extended. It blows my mind how quickly they got it done. Like, these guys, got it done quicker before anything else. No problems, no reports. It just got done. Boom, stamp, squashed, right? Which was great for these players. And again, Philadelphia was able to extend 2 receivers before these guys were able to extend 1, So, huge question marks on what directions they're looking at, Maybe there's a trade package they're looking for that they just don't find, And then that's when I get to a discussion like what trade packages would make it work for me, And to be completely honest with you, the 3 teams that not only have the cap space, they have a rookie quarterback or on a rookie quarterback deal for the most part, or they have a lot of cap space to really improve and they need wide receiver help. I mean, in no specific order. Obviously, number one in specific order. I'll go in specific order. Okay, number 1, Drake May in New England. They need a receiver. So they can go out here, give away a first-round pick at worst, maybe a early second and a fifth or something like that. But you can go out there and get one of the 2. You have the cap space. You have nobody else. You missed out on a wide receiver, which people think is really going to hurt you. So now you have the opportunity to get Drake May, a number 1 wide receiver, and an elite wide receiver. These guys are great wide receivers, And then same goes for Carolina. You just drafted a rookie receiver from Ole Miss. South Carolina, I don't know what the hell I was thinking of, but from South Carolina, right? You just addressed that offensive line. You added, basically, I would say you add another receiver. I was gonna say added to that defense, but I really haven't seen anything added to that defense that's crazy good, But you added to the offense. You added already, Deontay Johnson, who I think very highly of. I've spoken about him before. I think he's a very underrated receiver. You still have Adam Thielen, who's just another veteran presence, and I really like that. Having a possibility of having possibly T. Higgins or Brandon Ayuk alongside Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen. You're giving your rookie quarterback who had one of the worst offenses last year, and teams to work with last year, and now you're giving them a brand new OC and 3 legit wide receivers, that is screaming success. That's screaming a breakout year, and you have the opportunity to do it. You have the cap space to do it. It may cost a couple picks. In Carolina's case, you just lost your first round pick this year, so do you want to waste another one? But again, it's a thing that has to be considered. It's definitely something in the discussion, right? And then the third last team has got to be the New York Giants. Now, I know they're paying Daniel Jones $40 million for 1 more year of guaranteed money, right? You just drafted Malik Neighbors. You still have Jalen Hyatt, who you hope to see something from him this year, But other than that, all the receivers on that team could be interchangeable. Like, they're replaceable. They're replaceable players. So adding the likes of T. Higgins to that team, you give Daniel Jones another legitimate weapon, and then you still have Malik Neighbors, who's supposed to be the 1B, to Marvin Harrison Jr. in this upcoming draft, So now you give these guys you give Daniel Jones a legitimate chance to succeed. You give him 2 good receivers, like great receivers, and then you like the way that direction they're going. They already addressed the defense this offseason, so they're kind of sitting at a interesting spot right now, and then if everything goes wrong and Daniel Jones doesn't come back next year and you cut him, of no charge for that 3rd year because it's not guaranteed. Now you just open yourself another $40 million in cap space to go out there and draft some more get some more free agents, draft some more players, maybe sign Dak Prescott this upcoming offseason. There's a lot of options out there for this team going forward. But I definitely like these 3 teams to go out there and make a phone call and go pick up and just reach out to these guys about these players because these guys are all in the same type of situation. They just are basically in rebuild mode, right? You kind of need to find your quarterback Okay, and you need offensive help. Bad. You need offensive weapons bad on all of these teams, right? Carolina has addressed it as much as they could. New England hasn't really addressed it, right? You were supposed to trade back and get multiple picks to build an offense for a future QB, but you went Drake May because that was your guy, right? So again, so you could definitely use a receiver to help out. And then the Giants, like I said, Malik Neighbor, Jalen Hyatt, you have some young guys who can develop into something to give them a veteran presence, someone to learn from, someone to teach them the things about being an NFL receiver, is great. And someone as successful as T. Higgins to close out today's episode. But again, if you're watching this on Apple Podcasts, make sure to like and follow the show. Give it a 5-star rating. That'd be greatly appreciated. And again, if you like the podcast, you like the content, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend. Shout out Kenny Beecham for that one. All right. And if you want to, check out my second channel where I post smaller videos discussing things in more detail. Going to be more active on that as well. Follow me on TikTok at Young Rich Pod, Twitter at Young Rich Pod, all that good stuff. All the links will be in the description below. Again, Road to 5K continues. Like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on post notifications if you're on YouTube. I'm out live on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Again, like, comment, 5-star rating if you like it. Tell a friend and tell a friend and tell a friend. And we out.